Hi everyone, so welcome to another reading from my book Pieces, 52 short stories about being human. Today's reading number 10, it's a chapter called Awareness. This one's pretty short, it's only 3.5 pages, and to be honest, as I was reading through it to try and pick a paragraph, I was tempted to just read the whole thing, but then I thought I would not be of the pleasure of reading it for yourself. So I have, with some difficulty, picked a paragraph I will read, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it. So here we go. Living in a new paradigm brings its own challenges. To remain grounded and peaceful while retaining humanity takes some discipline. To fully experience your emotions without judgment, to be kind and compassionate to everyone, no matter what they had done, yet to retain your boundaries, to stay connected with your body and soul and remain in the present moment, yet learn from your past and make necessary plans for the future, is initially an everyday challenge that eventually becomes easier in your new way of being. It is usually at this stage when we lose our attachment to material things, but retain attachment to our loved ones. We stop taking things personally, but we take care of our person, despite knowing it is all an illusion. We keep in touch with this reality. We do not escape it or deny it. We live it fully, moment by moment. So these chapters basically my thoughts on awareness of what it actually is, how we attain it, the different levels of it, I suppose, and the different benefits, the pros and cons of each level. And the level that I have described in, it's part of that paragraph on the level that actually I'm really striving to achieve. And I think I'm getting there, slowly but surely. That for me is the ideal for this world. That's where we can retain our humanity, still live our lives with all its challenges and excitements, but just make it a little easier on ourselves and others. And the other stages, they're obviously very important as well. They all have their place. So I might just go through them just to give you just quick idea of what I'm talking about. So I started with the stage of what I call ignorance, but not in condescending way. It's the kind of ignorance is bliss stage, is when simply we don't have that higher awareness, when we just live a life believing that this is all there is to it, when we kind of more susceptible to the beliefs of, life is a struggle, life is hard, if I'm poor, I'll stay poor, that kind of stuff, when we don't really see beyond ourselves, our own egos, our own self-perception. And even that self-perception is quite limited. We don't see ourselves clearly. We hide from the light, so to speak, and remain kind of blind to what's really happening in our lives. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's in some ways easier because in that stage we lack personal responsibility. Things are happening to us. We can just be victims of our lives, and it is in some ways easier. And when your main focus in life is your survival, it's probably better to be at this stage, because it helps you to stay focused on what matters at that point, which is your survival, the survival of your family. So, I don't want to attach blame to this stage, or make people feel inferior for some reason if they at that stage, or superior if they pass that stage, because it's not about superiority, it's not about people being better than others. It's just seeing things through different lenses, and until you change the lens, you just can't see it any other way. And you can only change the lens when you're ready. We've all been in that first stage. No one's born all awakened and aware and all that. It's something that we grow into, and it happens at different stages of life. Or some, it doesn't happen ever in the life, and that's okay. There is no shoulds, there is no onus on, or you have to become aware. It's a choice. If you don't want to, then don't. It's fine. Live your life in a way that you want to. But if you do want to improve the quality of how you feel about yourself and others, then awareness is necessary. And the next stage is that awakening stage, that breaking through that kind of societal shell that's been built around us, that blindness, and we opening our eyes for the first time. And as I mentioned in a previous chapter in Awakening, you just kind of start realizing who you are, the different qualities of yourself, the dark sides to you and the light sides to you, and how you perceived in the world and how you perceive the world. And you start to question everything, and this can be really challenging time. It can, often two things happen. Either it becomes too scary and people shut themselves off and just go back to being in that darkness and in the blindness, or they work with their fear and decide that it's worth it and push through it and go through it and overcome those initial challenges. And then once they get through that stage, there is no way back. Once you awake, once you understand yourself and the world to a certain point, you can't undo it, because it's so fascinating. It brings so much richness and color to your life. It doesn't mean that your life becomes somehow easier. It just becomes worth living. It just becomes amazing. And you can still get depressed, and you can still feel pain, and you can still struggle with stuff, but there is this underlying knowing that it's all gonna be okay, and you will get through this, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. And then it's the next stage, which I was talking about, of when your realization of the light is fully there, and you have really good understanding of how things work. There is no need for judgment anymore. You really understand yourself. You've kind of looked at every, behind every door within you, kind of every closet in your mind has been open and looked at, and although not necessarily cleared out properly yet, at least you know what's in there. And when you know what's in your closet, and you see that kind of stuff in someone else's closet, you can't judge it. You can't say, oh, you're a bad person because this is what's happening in you and what you're doing. It's because it's in you too. So if you're judging them, you're judging yourself. Doesn't make sense, doesn't help anyone, right? So judgment of self and others dissipates. There's less self-criticism and criticism of others too, as a result, and we're more likely to find a balance between pursuing spiritual goals or kind of the more, it doesn't have to be spiritual, it can be those kind of big dreams, those personal goals of how we want to be as beings, and between the goals that we want to achieve in the material world. We kind of understand that to be able to save the planet and stop humanity from destroying it, we do need to be involved in the material world and in the politics and in a macro way. But doing that with the higher awareness of the connection that's between all living things, that we are part of the planet, and just making more conscious decisions, not only about our lives, but how we interact with each other, with the life forms on the planet, as well as the planet itself. And then there is the, I wouldn't say the last stage, I think it's kind of parallel to the one I just described, but it's kind of the really high consciousness, the kind of, Buddhas and Jesuses and, those gurus and teachers, those people living in isolated places and caves and stuff, monks, in their temples, when they really achieve amazing connection to the higher self, and they can retain their peace no matter what's happening around them, and there is detachment. There's real detachment from the reality that we perceive, from the reality of this world, of this duality that we live. And although I think it has its role, it's important to raise the awareness of the humanity as a whole, to have individuals like this existing. I think nowadays it's becoming impractical because the detachment is damaging, in my opinion. I think we need to stay involved with each other and with the planet, otherwise we'll just stop caring about what's happening. And what I've also observed, that quite often these people who are perceived as enlightened, mostly men somehow, are often in denial. They retreat from the life, they hide away from it. Anyone can achieve enlightenment when they in some temple, when they don't have to do anything apart from a few chores and eat a little bit and just meditate all day long without any distractions from the world. That's easy. To achieve awakening in everyday life, that's the real challenge, that's the heroism, that's what should be admired, and that's what happens. There's many walking amongst us who are like that, who still live in a real world and spread love around them and compassion and do lots of amazing things and achieve lots of amazing things without retreating to islands and caves and mountains to hide away from life. So although there is something to it, and maybe short term, to just help to gain some clarity, kind of getting away from distractions can be really helpful, to just have time to process stuff and to heal traumas and, as I said, gain some clarity. But if it becomes a way of life, to me it becomes an escape, which I don't think is particularly helpful to humanity or the planet as a whole. So yeah, that's just my take on this. It's my take on awareness. It's quite summarized, I suppose, in this chapter, and I think it will take you less time to read the chapter than to listen to this video. But yeah, have a read and let me know what you think and what your opinion on all this is. How do you feel about awareness and raising awareness, and what role it plays in this world? I'll be looking forward to hearing from you. And until next time, take care.